Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
again, and Happy New Year everyone, and welcome to episode 140 of There's Still Time, the AFTN podcast. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Pander.
I'm Jay Duke.
And I'm Zach Meisenheimer.
And I'm Slamo.
We're bringing you part 2 now of our end of season roundtables, where we're going to have a look at the future for the Whitecaps. We kind of touched a little bit on what kind of club we want the Whitecaps to be last time round. This time round, we're going to kind of look at some of the players that are hanging around. Will they still be here come first kick? What needs to improve on and off the pitch? And lots of other chit-chat as well as some bold predictions for 2016. So one of the first things that we're going to look at for the time to come for the Whitecaps is Carl Robinson. He's about to enter his third year as Whitecaps coach. He's had a great first 2 years. He's improved in 2015 from where he was in 2014. But of course with that comes that pressure that people expect him to improve even further. If we're analysing though Robbo's performances in the last 2 years, I mean obviously he's the right man for the job. But I mean there could be questions asked possibly about the formations that he uses, the tactics that he uses. Robbo's going to be one of the first people himself to say that he still has a lot to learn in the game as a manager. Do you think he can take this club too much further, or do you feel that he's got what it takes to take this club to be like a LA Galaxy style powerhouse in MLS?
I think you need to, as I've listened to Robbo this year, his press conferences and the clips you put on the show and all that kind of stuff. I think we need to listen carefully. It's almost like you need to read between the lines kind of thing. It's kind of awkward when you have not just Robbo, but you have Marius Rovda on other public venues going out and saying, yeah, if you have 4 to 6 million, we'd love to take that and invest it in a designated player. To me, that says a lot. I think it's said in jest, but it says a lot. I think it says that there are limitations that they would like to live beyond, or that they'd like to implement things beyond that, and they're being held back. I don't know that factually. I'm just saying that that's what when I listen to them this year, and you hear those kind of comments, I think that they don't have, and those entrusted to be stewards of the club had said in the past, they are the final decision makers when it comes to designated players. They've said that publicly. The problem is they then say, but our coach has total control. He has control over everything. But when you control the designated players, you control the squad makeup. You control what's available and what positions and all that kind of. Or you have too much of a significant role in that. So I think if that's how things are going to be, we're going to be limited in how far we can go.
I do think that we have to be a little careful with that, just because there's very few clubs. In the world, but certainly in the MLS, who just have a blank check and their ownership group says, yeah, do whatever you want, I don't care. Like, we all know that the MLS isn't doing near as badly as they say they're doing, but you can't do what Toronto does. That's not realistic. Like unless you're backed by someone like MLSE, which has just pockets full of cash. And I know what you're talking about is not that we want to be TFC and just spend a whole bunch of money on a bunch of superstars to fill the seats. But the final four this year were all teams who had no noticeable superstars. Now there's DPs in all the clubs, but none of them were that $6 million man. Your Giovinco, your Dos Santos, your Robbie Keanes, your Thierry Henrys, whatever. There is definitely a model for success that doesn't include breaking the bank on a $4 to $5 million player, and you can't expect some of the more, I don't want to say small market, but medium market, let's say clubs like Vancouver, to always be in on the big ticket items. But what I will say is that once in a while you want to be competitive. You have to, and now's actually the perfect time to do that. Like, say, Robbo, we're close right now. The stands are being filled. Like, do whatever you want. You've shown us for 2 years now that you've been a successful recruiter. You've brought in good talent. How much do you want to spend? We'll make it happen. Go win us an MLS Cup. And I just don't know if that's actually what's happening when it comes to the player acquisition side. And right now it should. I understand some reluctancy to pay the big bucks, but there's a place and a time to shell out, and it seems like now's the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a hybrid model, that can be used, right? And it would be nice that you can say you can't do like TFC, or it's better to follow Dallas or whatever the case may be. But I mean, if the opportunity's there, I mean, I don't see why you can't do both, right? I mean, I'm not going to, it's not my money, so, I'm not going to begrudge somebody for spending their money wisely, but at the same time, I'm a consumer, honestly, and I want to see my organization winning, right? So, I mean, ultimately, that's the goal. And I think, I agree. If you could say, like, one player, spend what you need to spend, that's going to push us over the top when it's right there. If you're going to say we finished second in the West, we finished third overall, what does it take to take that same group of people and go, okay, we're dominant. Not only are we going to be contenders, but we're going to dominate and win this thing, right? Is there one player that you can do that's realistic that I can spend $5-6 million on, whatever it needs to be, that's going to push us there?
Kind of talking of that then, and we'll come back to Robbo in a sec, but...
That took a tangent quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it kind of did, but since we're talking about it, we'll cover this, which we're going to cover later, but may as well mention it now. If the Caps decide that they want to bring players, obviously they're not going to bring a Giovinco or a Bradley at $6 million or Dempsey or whatever.
They're not paying a massive transfer fee for anybody, essentially.
No, but if they want to bring bigger than they've got, like $2, $3, $4 million range, will those players want to come to Vancouver? Will they want to play on a turf pitch? Is it a market that excites?
This is all overblown.
Honestly, it's not overblown because there's a lot of people that do complain about the turf.
Okay, but there's a lot of players that don't complain about the turf. There's a lot of players who won't go to Dallas because it's too hot. There's players who don't want to go back to. They love staying in the U.S. because they would hate to go back to the rain in Scotland or whatever. Yeah. But there's pluses and minuses. Vancouver's always one of the most livable cities in the world. It's gorgeous here. The weather's great. You don't have to worry about snow. The medical facilities here are good. It's super safe for anybody who's coming from Argentina or countries that have maybe a little more crime issues and stuff. I don't. It's always going to be an issue. Yeah, there's always going to be positives and negatives to everywhere. Turf is a negative. It is, but how many players are going to absolutely say no? What does it matter to us if it's $4 million or 4.5? Because you had to pay the guy an extra $500,000 over a team that was gonna get $4 million on grass or $4.5 on turf. I think that those issues can be avoided.
I agree, but there is a section of the fan base in Vancouver that want to see a big name Premiership player, and those guys, especially the guys from the UK, aren't going to want to come over and risk injuring themselves at a good age by playing on a turf surface.
Because it's not even that realistic, though, right? Because it's like, how many are really been in MLS?
Yeah,
right? I mean, there's a few. But
if you believe what MLS wants to know,
it's not like your average. You wouldn't ask 20,000 people at BC Place who Giovinco was 2 years ago, and
I had no
How
idea
many
who
of
he
them would
was
know
because
who he
I
was?
don't watch
Serie
Serie A. I don't
Yeah,
watch Italy,
exactly.
so I was like, I've never heard of this guy. I was like, oh, he's quite good.
Yeah, so I mean, there you can go and poach. I mean, the French league's becoming a breeding ground, right? It's all these 23-year-olds that are getting sold out, or younger than that.
But
getting sold. You could go to France and pick a guy out of there.
You're always going to have folk though here that have this unrealistic expectation of, Gerard's going to be what Gerard type figure to come to Vancouver, or
Look at Pirlo. I mean,
Pirlo,
he's great to watch at times, but the team stunk, and he was a big reason for it. Like,
Oh no,
those are
I'm
the
gonna
guys I
disagree with
want.
that.
Oh no,
Those are the guys I want on other teams.
When the three big guys actually finally got to the team all together, I think they were successful. It was the beginning part.
I don't know
of
about
the
that. At the very end, they had a few good games together, including the one in
Well,
Vancouver.
But they weren't together
it was
that
the
much.
18-year-old
That's the thing.
right back. That was the
Yeah.
What was his? What's his name? I can't remember.
Oh,
his name,
Angelino?
but the young-
Angelino, yeah.
What a player, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
On loan from
He's
City.
on loan, right? Yeah.
From where?
From their parent
City.
club.
No way.
Yeah.
Is that true?
You're going to see
They got so
more,
many. That's how they're going to save money.
He was a player.
You're going to see more and more loan players though. I think in
He
this
set up
league,
the goal.
and
yeah.
it's like Robbo, like going back
That's
to
what he
Robbo
uses.
now.
He uses very well the loan system. He uses that.
We've talked about how Robbo's good at identifying players. He's also good at identifying young players as well. He's kind of handpicked who he wants from the residency program to kind of go into USL and identify those talents. And he's been good at working with those players that he doesn't want to bring up just now to help them find either other clubs or to go to college and stuff like that. So his man management is fantastic. On the pitch, do you have any concerns about his rigidness with sticking to the formation? He does change as the game goes on, sometimes too late. I don't think you can question his subs. Some media were saying, why did he not make subs earlier in that last game against Portland? He brought them on at the 60-minute mark and something else. I don't know how early the guys expecting him to make subs. But do you have any doubts or worries about his tactics being just one-dimensional or him being too rigid?
I've been on about this. Probably every podcast I've been on with you that I've said I don't know why when we're chasing a goal, chasing a game, and you need a goal, why you don't flip that midfield 3 diamond upside down and put the 2 players in an attacking position, and Lava, who's proven he can play a single holding midfield role,
And he excels at that sometimes too.
that was what it took some transition for him to learn how to play the way he is now. So I don't know, especially, and the problem is that you're not going to do it on the last game of the year against Portland because you haven't played it at all this year. But we had the opportunity when Mesquita. If you had played Laba with Mesquita and Morales, or Mesquita and Rosales, or Mane and Mesquita or something, and had the two that diamond upside down from how. That alone is exactly what Portland did, which turned their season around. They were having such a hard time, and because of injury, Will Johnson went down.
RSL's run was the same thing, right? I know they didn't make the playoffs, but they were sucking bad and changed their formation and big swing, right?
And so that's the only part that really bothers me. And I agree with you that I think Robinson will be the first to admit that he's still a new coach. Sometimes we don't understand that. He's still learning some of the finer points, probably. And I bet you we'll see a little more tinkering next year because of that. But, man, that was frustrating just to see that we have no other option. It's partially due to injury, but Robinson could have done a lot more earlier in the year to explore those options.
I think he did explore some of them. I remember talking with people about he was even thinking of going with 3 at the back and stuff, and trying that out, or they tried it out a little bit in training and stuff.
Because was it not the season that's just finished that he went with 3 DMs basically in one of the games or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
On the road. It was on the road. Yeah, it was due to injuries, I think, too.
That was amazing.
That was a
it was kind of like what we did against Portland in the first game, but it was even more defensive.
7 at the back.
Yeah. Like you said, Jay, I think he's a learning coach, and I think he knows the game. I think he understands the game. I think I think it's hard because we think it's just easy. You just you get out there and you have a way of playing. Mm-hmm. And really, I think as I've observed more over these last probably 6 years, maybe 7 years, including before MLS, it takes a lot for a team to play together and know what, how they want to make the runs and like that. So a lot of that is like your first like month or whatever, two together, figuring things out, and then by then you're in the flow of games. And then if you haven't maybe been working on two things from the very beginning, it's not super easy. But you're right, Portland did do it.
Yeah,
you're right. Portland showed that it can be done, and I honestly would not be surprised. And again, I've heard this back and forth about this, but if we went to two striker option, or we had a one central striker option and a two striker option next year.
Or pushing an attacking mid out wide, or there's lots of different things you can do, right? With the flexibility, I think in the midfield, we have a ton of midfielders, right?
Yeah, and guys who can move. Like Tybert is the perfect guy to keep around for that.
Yeah,
because you could move him when you go down a goal, push him wide.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
And bring in Mane in centrally to play right behind Rivero.
And I think that would be the one thing that I'm not going to pretend to think I know what's going on in Carl's head, but if there's the one thing, to me it comes down to the movement in the center mid of the field, and it was pretty stagnant there, and there wasn't an idea, or I don't know, maybe there wasn't a confidence in moving things around and seeing if things could change up a bit. I mean, they've played. The only thing that would be remotely, I guess, would be putting Mane in behind Rivero at one point, but I don't know. That seemed like more of a wishful thinking than anything else, to me, honestly.
You know what? Sometimes you need to maybe play him alongside him too. Maybe play him a little higher up and just change it. Like I think he needs to change it a little bit more often. Maybe a guy who can play number 10 and a number 9.
The problem that I find with that is that the more and more I think about it, the more and more I think that Pedro is one of our problems. He's such a joy to watch, and so it's really tough because when he's on, man, it's magic.
Yeah, those balls.
Those balls. But one of the thing that you mentioned, Slam, was that stagnant, that they when they just die in the midfield, it's because there's not those overlapping runs and those triangles and those guys working off the ball. They're standing still with one guy as a safety net behind and two wingers going forward.
Yeah,
and
I think Pedro feels isolated sometimes, right in the middle of the field, because both Laba, or is it Kofi or Tybert, they're not supportive enough for him to. Tybert will sometimes come behind the center backs and pick up the ball or something like that, and he won't be able to make it up in time to support Morales.
Well, that's what they do. I mean, that's pretty classic, right? They spread the center backs wide, send the wing backs further up, and then have the Russell.
But then you don't have the support.
And that's
from
great.
Morales.
But then you move the ball to Morales and everybody stands still again.
I remember talking to Tater once, and he said we were talking about Davide, and he said, MLS is different than a lot of parts of the world. You can't have a player who doesn't defend or doesn't work hard. And you saw Davide improve on that or up his game in that sense over the time here. But sometimes, and I know a lot of it has to do with injury and all that kind of stuff, but sometimes this year it was kind of like, Pedro just, when he's on the ball, he can contribute. And if he's not, and he's not able to move enough, he wasn't as effective. And I don't know if that's just being healthy or something he has to not develop or add to, but like recognize it. You just have
to wonder the part, is it just his character and his personality, right? I mean, that's when we talk about Will Johnson, spraying balls and Big Willie there. I mean, he's got that personality, right? He's going to bring that regardless. He could be 40 years old and sucking and playing the old timers league with me, and he's still going to bring that same personality because that's who he is.
He's got a swagger.
He's also the kind of guy he'll be running forward and be like, "Come on, guys!" waving the guys behind him.
Yeah. I think we've seen glimpses of it though
with Pedro.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I wouldn't have him as the captain.
I was just a way to say that. To me, the way that he just his whole, what's the word I'm looking for? The way he carries himself on the pitch, demeanor on the pitch. It's not one of a captain. You don't see him like going, come on, clapping your hands.
That's not who he is.
I've always, since day one, thought that Kendall would be the perfect guy for that, and I know that his English isn't perfect, but
Oh,
Matt,
I think it's
fine.
I think it's better
fine.
than Pedro's.
It's better than mine.
I guess it is probably better than Pedro's. Yeah. So, and I know that he was newer and stuff, but he is such an emotional leader. And even though he at times will make silly plays and he'll get red carded or whatever, he never does it. And you don't go like when John Marcus Davidson did his headbutt or whatever. The team doesn't go, "Oh, I can't believe you just like what are you thinking?" It's always like, we'll get this for Kendall now. You know, he's always seems that kind of. Why not give him the armband?
I think they should give him the armband, and you don't need to make a big announcement. Just quietly give it to him.
But that's not how it works.
you got
That's not how it works.
Yeah, no,
Or
that's
give
too
it to
big
him
of a thing,
during the ceremony when they introduce the team at the beginning of the year.
But you can't.
They
You
name
can't-
captains.
you
and
can't-
stuff
you
like
can't-
In
that.
the way we have it set up, you can't do that.
No, you also can't take the armband off a player.
Unless
that is such a
maybe
whole huge profile guy on your team that's still on your team.
well maybe he could write a
Because it
letter
looks like a
and put it
big
on the
slap to
website.
him. So they're in a hole now.
Kendall is a far bigger profile now than
Yeah.
like Pedro's still on the ads and stuff like that, but Kendall Waston is the number one.
This is Kendall's team.
It
If
is,
it's-
which is crazy out of a center back.
If it's not an Outset's team, it's Kendall's team. It's one of those two guys are probably seem like they're the two leaders of the team that are like the top players.
Well, they could have it like they did towards the end of the season, where both Pedro and Eisted wore the armband,
Yeah, that's
which
how
I
you
thought was
transition,
quite
right?
weird.
Yeah.
And or if we're lucky, I'm doing in air quotes, Pedro will be injured to start the season, then you just make the smooth transition.
Yeah.
Wait, when did they both wear the armband?
The last game of the season against Portland, they both had the armband.
During the match?
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
It's a new MLS rule.
Yeah.
We bought it with allocation
money
armbands.
for
Yeah.
someone.
Extra armband.
Defensive captain, offensive captain.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it should not be allowed to
It was
happen.
kind of weird.
So let's move on to
Maybe no one told Pedro he wasn't the captain anymore. It's like, oh. So we talked about the captaincy there, and it's like part of the problem is there's not a lot of veteran leadership on the team, and there might be less now with the players that don't look like they're coming back. Is it perhaps the case, now we've talked about Robbo likes to develop young players, is the team maybe too young? Does it need to have a bit more of a veteran presence? Robbo's talked about if he has to replace someone like, say, Beitashour, that he wouldn't be bringing in a young guy, it would be someone in the 26 to 30 year old
In
age
his
range.
prime.
Do we maybe need a few more of those guys on the team?
I don't think it has to do with age. I think it has to do with winning experience, right? You need guys that have won at different levels and that sort of stuff. So I think that's where we need to make sure, we have that in the squad. I don't care if they're 22 or 23. If you bring a 22-year-old World Cup winner, I don't know if we'll ever see that in MLS, but in theory, if you had something like that versus a 32-year-old journeyman MLS player, I'd take the 22-year-old player, and I think he'd bring a different type of experience.
Not only that, it's a personality thing too. I mean, Gershon has 100 and some caps now for Vancouver. So
Respect.
yeah, and that's amazing. And he's still a young player.
Yeah,
but you can't tell me that he's not an MLS veteran now. Like he is. He's had so
He's
many
been there
games.
since the
5
beginning.
years.
Almost.
Yeah, and so I mean, at this point, you have to say if he's not a leader on the team, it's not. He's had an opportunity to do that. It's just not really his personality. He's not the club leadership type of guy.
Well, the way our players work is they work well together as a whole, but they also have like not in the negative way you call them cliques, but they're not clique. They're like friendship groups, and so they kind of have these friendship groups that they kind of hang out in, but they work well when they come together.
Which is really unique. I mean, most of the time when you see that happen in dressing rooms and stuff like that, it's negative. It's these guys don't talk with these guys, and the only place that there's even an appearance of that is almost with like Kakuta and Octavio, or like sometimes there's been, and I have no information to back this up other than pure speculation and people talking on Twitter and stuff, but it does sometimes look like they're really not on the same page when you would hope that those two guys in theory would click so well, but just things haven't worked out, and you wonder if that's maybe an off the pitch kind of thing, competition or what it is.
Both of those, even to Christian Sechera, they're all goal scorers. They look for goals first, and the thing is we were talking about Octavio Herrera. He had such a great start to the season, but then when he dried up there, that's when you saw a guy like Mane trying to take it more for himself instead of supplying the ball to Rivero, and that's where Rivero started getting frustrated, started taking shots, random shots on his own too.
Random shots.
I don't mind having a bit of a mix up there. The thing that I love about Rivero so much and why I think he's going to do so well, and people criticized him on this, but when that 2-inch hammered the ball in from Teixeira, how often have we had a player on our team?
He was laughing about it after the game.
Yeah, but that's what I want in my striker. Yep. I want my striker to never, ever, ever give up on that ball until the mesh is coming back.
I totally agree with that because the turf monster could easily it's some weird bump and it could go wide.
So just to be a striker or an attacking player like that, you have to be a certain mentality, and so I agree that you can run into problems because you have to be a little selfish to do that.
The only thing that really age brings into it is the experience of telling stories or whatever. You want some element of that on the team, but that's not necessarily leadership. That's just having the wise old guru in the corner with the beard
that could support the coaching staff and everything.
Exactly. Oh, don't worry about a kid. Everybody gets yelled at. Blah blah blah.
Because you got to have that gap because the coaches can't be friendly all the time with the players. They got to have some kind of.
There's got to be someone, but I think they're honestly, I think what they're doing really well is. They are doing that when you look at the 16-year-olds coming into USL Pro, right? So you're going to learn those as you go up. So you'll have those skills, as you move up the charts.
And Earnshaw's been obviously he's been spending time with the residency. I think under U16s, even the U14s, he spent some time with them too. So he's trying to get his coaching license. So that's one other reason why he joined this club.
I don't think there'll be any question. It seems Robinson likes that though, with Rosales, with. Kaw, with Earnshaw, even if those guys didn't get very much minutes, that's why he brought Kaw in. That's why is that I'm sure Robinson wouldn't even thought he would have played as well as he did through the middle of the season when he signed him. But I could totally see, even if all those guys are gone, I could see him going after a couple other 34-year-old players just to fill out the roster and be those cool heads in the room.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be a leader per se, though. I'm not worried about the age of the team or the leadership qualities there, that sort of thing, personally.
Well, I guess another thing to throw in then is how do you get, if you care about getting it, more MLS minutes for the homegrowns? Me, I couldn't care less where the players come from, as folk know, but the only way that Bustos and Froze and Adekugbe are going to develop properly is to get first team minutes. So how do you fit them into the team as it stands just now, and with who Robbo's looking to bring in? Because Tybert has not been getting minutes, and you can't see where he's going to get these proper minutes that he needs from at this stage of his career.
Well, Sam, I think they're going to start this season, right? I think Sam will get his chance.
He started the first 7 of 9 games or something, got hurt, and then never really could get back into the thing because Jordan Harvey had a fantastic year.
Yeah, but I can see them going right back to Sam and throwing him in there and getting those.
Well, Sam will need to do what he did last year. Sam earned it in the preseason.
He did.
Yeah. And so and
that's the one thing Robbo said before, that these guys have to earn their minutes. Yes, it's good to give them minutes, but they have to earn them too.
But he brings something that no one else on the team has, right? I mean, if anyone's going to be whipping in a cross from the left side corner flag, it's Sam, right? Or whipping it, at least getting it, right?
Yeah. And one of the few guys who truly gets to the end line.
Yeah,
exactly. I love what Jordan did this year, and I think he's going to come in a big different mentality. I know I was with Michael when we chatted with him at training one day, and he admitted, he said, I wasn't sharp when I came in. I took advantage of my position, sort of thing, and I think he's going to come in a lot different next year. I think he's going to work his butt off in preseason. Yeah. So I think Sam's got a fight on his hands.
Maybe maybe Jordan Harvey will be the starting right back.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have inverted the whole team all over the place. So it'll get scary.
If Sam does claim it, you could even see Jordan moving on this summer because he's still going to be a good commodity.
He will be.
Well, I can see Jordan being a he's a class guy too,
Yeah.
right? He'd just being a total pro.
But then if you get rid of him, there's another veteran you're losing on.
But you almost
that's
owe
what I'm
him.
saying. He's a pro. He'll
Yeah.
do what he's got to do, and you could see him getting minutes at defensive mid even at some point, or
But
something.
it'd be good to like rotate
the
the.
wingbacks.
It'd be
That's where
good
they
to
go,
rotate the players, especially when you're going to have Voyagers Cup, obviously Champions League again. It'd be good to rotate players in. Don't have like a whole young team. Don't have a whole veteran team. Put in a Bustos and then put Morales in another game and stuff like that. Like like we were talking earlier, in I think it was another podcast when we were talking about Kofi, Tybert, and Laba. Why not just throw Bustos in there against the? He was healthy. He was fit. He could have started even if at halftime you want to take him off and then stick Kofi in. Do that, but at the initial part of the game, Timbers would not have expected Bustos to show up on the pitch in that first leg.
Well,
I wonder how
that's.
much. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say your answer is easy, Michael. To where do you find the minutes for these guys? And it's very easy. It's Maddox and Hurtado should be getting 0 minutes on the club anymore. When you need someone to fill in instead of Rosales, who was not very good at any part in the season, Froze could play in there. Bustos, when we were begging for someone to play, and I know he had a bad injury at the just the wrong time. But Bustos could have come in and played for you as an attacking midfielder. Those have to be the guys that you go to for your 30-minute subs. You got to live by them or die by. Because if there's no point in waiting until they're 22 years old to see if they're going to be able to make it. Here, give them a shot now.
Yeah.
There's also the almost forgotten man because of his own injury, which is Ben McKendry, who could be pushing hard for minutes as the DM or whatever.
Yeah, he's on a guaranteed deal still, right? Yeah.
And
he could make someone like Kofi or Tybert or both of them, quite frankly, available for trades or transfers.
Or especially Flores now bringing him back and saving money there too.
Right.
Yeah.
I hear they want to bring Flores.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure
I
about
said that. Like, we talked about it before, and then I wrote about it in my Keep Trade Release thing, and folk are like, why on earth would you bring Flores back? Robbo really rates him.
Yeah.
And he's 19.
The box, he's young.
I totally see it. I do.
That first appearance was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And he had a couple other very brief moments where very brief, where you saw that. You saw his desire when he got the ball. His head was up, and he's like, "Let's go."
Yeah.
And as much as Tybert seems like a guy who should be able to do that, he doesn't. He just hasn't.
He's so one-footed at this point. It's so frustrating.
But it seemed like he was developing that other foot. But I don't know what happened. Remember that one season when he was?
But it's
sending
not
in
even
crosses,
that.
but
It's just like. Maybe, but it's even just a mentality thing. It's like I don't need you to take a shot with your right foot. I just need you to
move the ball.
I just need you to be able to move up the field and become an available. Make
option.
a ghost run in just to pull some defenders away. Like do something.
That's been an issue with the Whitecaps for the last 4 years.
Absolutely.
They never make runs into the box.
Yeah.
Once one person's going for the ball in the box, nobody else makes a run. Everybody just watches as that ball goes in.
Like Morales, for a guy who doesn't play any defense, like how often does the guy actually get into the box or the 6-yard line to try and
Which was kind of, watching Maddox this year was like the one part of his game which I thought he actually improved, which probably doesn't show well on TV because he was making great runs up top, which he probably learned from Ribeiro and why he's scoring for Jamaica and never got a ball, right?
I think his ability to stay onside this year was really good.
Yeah, there
that's one thing I'll give him credit
when he was
for.
attacking towards our end and you're watching him make those runs and he's coming off the shoulder and then running a flat line across the line and then
he used to just run north-south, and now he's doing the curved run.
So that's one improvement then.
I honestly think, like, for all the stick we've given Matix in this podcast over the last couple of years, if Robbo had gone with a 2-striker formation when Darren was in his form and he came back from the Gold Cup, see what he can do. That was your chance to see, look, you're hot just now. Let's go with 2 up front, playing off this guy that's struggling, but it just didn't happen.
Maddox, I don't think he's going to be in MLS. I think he's going to be in Europe, but I'm worried that he's going to be in MLS and score 15, 16 goals.
With somebody else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that does bring us nicely then on to the next point of the Caps re-signed some players, some of which were
picked up their options.
Picked up their options, rather, like Matix, Hurtado. But if you look at the players that are signed just now, you know that the current Caps roster is not going to be what it looks like come first kick.
Yeah, currently they have 20 players under MLS contracts.
From the guys
that have been either re-signed or picked up options or were already under contract, who do you think is most likely to not be here come first kick?
Maddox, for sure. I
And
think he's gone.
I'll throw Hurtado in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hurtado, I think because he's a bit cheaper, they'll give him a chance. I don't think he'll be here.
My
My
thing with Hurtado, the reason why I don't think he'll be here is because they were still looking for goals during that season, and they sent him to Norway.
Yeah,
which tells me that they had no confidence.
Yeah.
I know Robbo's going to say he had confidence in him, but I personally don't think he had.
Well,
and they just didn't want him sitting on the bench and losing even more confidence. I think he actually did him a favor by sending him away to Norway.
Robbo was asked about it, and he said he's still very much part of the club.
That's because he wants something for him.
And
Of course he is.
He wants to keep his asset a little, valuable.
for sure.
But he doesn't seem to have been overly happy when he was in Norway. And if you look at his Twitter account, he hardly tweeted at all really when he was over there. And I don't know, Robbo said you don't become a bad player overnight. And I know you're going to say, was Hurtado a very good player?
Yeah,
but he
goal
had
against
that
Columbus.
one season where he was getting some goals. And I think Robbo does believe that he can get back up to that level. I just don't see it.
But that was such a low level that I don't think it's worth it to waste time in developing him back to that. That was a level where you want him to get up even higher.
The thing
with
Hurtado, even in that string where he scored the 5 goals, 5 games, I think it was, or something like that, 5 goals in 6 games. And a couple of them were that goal of the year against Seattle where he did the 2 cutbacks in the box. There, still during those, even in that stretch and throughout that season, how many times did he try that same cutback move and just bundled it over the line or straight into the defender? Like he tried it so many times. And I'm not saying he doesn't have some skill. He does. He doesn't have the soccer IQ, and his skill doesn't match up to his physical abilities because he's crazy fast. And even that Seattle goal, you watch it in super slow motion, and he cuts the 2 guys back, amazing. And then he just hammers it as hard as he can, and it happens to go right on the underside of the bar. And it looked amazing.
Fry ducked and gave him the space
it looked amazing, but it was like, man, if you had tried that 100 times, 99 times that goes into Rosette.
Yeah.
So he's just never been that good. I think they could get value for him. They could get just $50,000 or an allocation or an international spot or something to send him to Chicago or something and get, like, you know what I mean?
Chicago.
You think they're still good. I don't know, Slamo. You think they're great still.
Chicago is Columbus 2 years ago, right? They just need the barrel halter because they got a lot of talent.
Of the current players, there's one other kind of either or player that I was thinking. I wanted your guys' opinion on this. We've talked about it, I think, in other podcasts. They have a lot of money invested in holding midfielders currently. You obviously got Laba, you got Kofi, you got Tybert. Tybert, obviously, is probably the cheapest out of the 3. What do you think about them if they don't use that money to buy him down? What do you think about Laba maybe being sold, or Kofi going over to Europe and then getting a cheaper holding midfielder and using that money somewhere else?
Using Ben McKendry, yeah.
And then you have Ben McKendry coming up. You have Keon's Froze also. You have Keon's Froze also. So what do you guys think about Laba or Kofi moving on and creating a space for somebody else?
If Gersh goes, I hope he goes to Europe. I know he said before he doesn't want to play. I don't think he wants to play for another MLS team, which is what you hope your players would say. So if he does go, I would hope it's to Europe. I don't know anything about that.
Do you like that 3, like that depth, or do you think somebody like Debbie, if they keep in Debbie Flores, they got Benny McHenry?
The thing is,
that's a
it
very
always
like
comes down to, are you going to spend the money if you have it?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, do I care if they save money and I get nothing out of it?
No, but if we're talking about using that money going somewhere else,
and bring in a player like Caldwell who's going to play a 6 and be $90,000, because to me it's sort of like what the position is and what the value is, right? You know, like you look at it, if you take that spot and you go, what's the most we can get out of a 6? Well, the most you can get out of it is this much, Well, I guess showing my hands is not going to. Is like, I can get an 8 out of 10 out of a defensive midfielder who's simply a defensive midfielder. That's the maximum cap. But I can get a 9 out of 10 from a box to box, or a 10 out of 10 from a box to box. Well, I'll spend less money and get a 7 from my defensive mid and have that one spot gap. Then end up with a 7 in the defensive mid, and some shit box to box player who can't play the role, right? To me it's always the New England factor, right? Yeah. It's the Caldwell and Jones. I know Jones is old now and stuff, but that was like the perfect combination to me for that position. If you're gonna have a defensive mid, you got to make it the box to box guy playing behind 3 guys and spend the money there on a guy with mad skill. Laba is a huge skill and he can play anywhere in the world, but he can't. He's not a guy that you can use a DP spot on and build your team around.
He's not dynamic.
He's not dynamic.
I disagree with you only here, and I'm very vocal about my support for Laba. But if you have a guy like Laba, I think he's the best defensive midfielder in the league. But I agree he doesn't give you anything really dynamic going forward. So play to those strengths. And you listen, you're going to give up more goals if you play one less defensive player. But you're gonna get your 8 out of 10 out of him as your defensive midfielder. You're gonna get an 8 out of 10 with him as in a 2 DM setup. You play him as a 1, you get all Laba all the time. You can afford to have him completely give up going forward because now you can add a completely another player into the attack.
So if you're going to do that,
sure, that's another option.
Get rid of Kofi. Would you say get rid of Kofi then and bring somebody else instead of him?
Yeah, absolutely. Get rid of Kofi.
Not get rid of.
Sell him on. And I like Kofi.
Yeah.
I really do. I've always been a big Kofi fan. I agree that maybe it's time for Kofi to move on for both of us.
He's got a lot of resources in the defensive midfielding on the team, right?
Yeah.
And we have none. We have Rivero, but we don't have a whole lot in that spot. And we have all these resources in the defensive mid role. And there's too many resources in that role, right?
Pep loves midfielders.
Yeah, it's just too much. There's too much there, in a cap league.
I think Robbo was a defensive midfielder too.
Yeah. I've said it before, I'd get rid of both Kofi and Tybert, and from Tybert's point of view, he needs to play.
Yeah.
The kid's going to get ruined if he has another season like this.
Yeah.
And 5 years in, we still don't really know Russell Tybert's best position, and he hasn't shown us that he's an MLS starter in 5 years. If it was anyone that wasn't a Canadian, he'd be gone.
Sure, but he is also the perfect MLS squad player because you can play
if
him
he's
anywhere.
happy to still be that, then I guess you should know.
If Atakubi and Harvey were in a car together and both broke their leg in some car crash, you'd be like, well, I wish I'd knock on wood. I don't want that to ever happen.
Merry Christmas, Jordan.
But you look around your team and you go, God, we have a game in an hour. What are we going to do?
Christian Dean.
No, not Christian Dean. He's barely a center back. But you could put. I'm sorry, that was extra cruel. But no, sure. Put Tybert there. Got a spot that needs filling at right mid. Yeah, put Tybert there. Attacking mid, sure. Wherever you want.
It's like the Jordan Smith.
His favorite position in residency was behind 1 or 2 strikers as an attacking midfielder.
But he's been given a very few opportunities.
And he did
there,
with the national team against was it Trinidad?
Yep. Trinidad, he did it all.
He did a great job in that.
His favourite position now appears to be watching from
behind
the bench.
Willie Johnson.
Yeah, or behind Willie Johnson. Just quickly, just going back to Hurtado as well. I just had a look at his stats because he didn't play USL. He played 3 games. He started 2. He had 141 minutes. With no goals, no assists and 4 shots. Now there was talk that he had refused to play USL initially, and I asked Robbo about that, and Robbo said no, it was genuine, it was administrative error. You can write that off for the one time he didn't do it. All those other times, the administration error had been fixed, so why was he not playing USL? Did he feel he would struggle in USL and then would completely ruin his chance altogether, or... Because Robbo's always said he leaves it up to the players if they want to play. And for me, if he's not chapping on the door and saying, look, I want to play USL today,
and show you that I deserve to be
You
in
should
the
have been
first
able
team.
to look at Christian Dean, right? And see it, like it's not like there wasn't examples there that he could.
Tim Parker.
Well, like
Robert
Robert
Earnshaw.
Earnshaw started the same amount of
But
games,
that's a
played
different reason.
14 minutes more, but got 2 goals compared to.
But it's
to
also
his
a different reason. Like Hurtado using Dean and Parker as examples, right? I mean, he should be able to see that. Yeah, I can go play minutes and earn my spot, right?
Now, so the last thing I just want to mention just now, just looking ahead to 2016 for the Whitecaps, prioritising the competitions. Once again, the Caps are in all 3 competitions: Voyageurs Cup, Champions League, MLS. Where are the priorities? Because there has to be a main priority. Obviously, you want to win everything, but do you see Robbo just going with the young guys again, or is he likely to maybe take the Champions League a little bit more seriously now?
I think one thing that's going to kind of throw things up in the air a bit, or that's definitely going to be different than previous years, is the fact that the Voyageurs Cup schedule is supposedly supposed to be in July this year. So there won't be those earlier season opportunities for younger players or fringe players or guys who aren't getting minutes to play in the Voyageurs Cup in early and late May. Supposedly it's all going to happen in July, and I think that's going to hurt us.
Yeah, I was forgetting
it's not going to be as good for us. That's not official. That's
also,
confirmed,
especially because there's the 2-week break in June.
Yes, for the
I think it goes ahead, unless everyone's been arrested by then.
We'll just loan our players down to WFC2, and they can all have fun there.
Yeah, it's just a shame that they can't use the USL players in the competitions because of the stupid rules. It's like they're part of the club. They deserve to have a chance to play if they want to get called up. It's not an MLS competition, so to me it makes
that's the
no
MLS
sense.
CBA rule, though, isn't it?
Are you talking about for the Voyageurs?
Yeah.
Well, Voyageurs
the
and
Champions
Champions League as
too.
well, because they couldn't use their WFC2 guys for the trip to Honduras.
I don't see why they almost need to go one way or the other. Either let the USL team play, let them have a second entrance for your USL team and then your MLS team, or say no, it's just a club entrance and you can pick whoever you want from the club.
Which to me would make perfect sense.
Because the USL side is basically, that's a reserves team. Really,
It was nice when it was like that in the
Think of it.
past.
Yeah. And it'd be awesome if you could see the WFC2 beat Toronto FC in the Voyageurs Cup.
Yes.
Like back at Swan Guard.
You said something, Michael, that you can't prioritize them all, but I've often wondered this, why can't you? Why can't you prioritize them all? And go back to what I say. Don't do this full 11 player switch because then it's obviously start early with some of your moving some players around and just bring 3 or 4 players in and out.
Yeah, don't have a team that looks like they just met in the locker room before they went out on the pitch.
Exactly. So I think you can do it. Are you going to drop a point here too? Maybe. But, the Whitecaps at one point this season, we went, holy smokes, these guys could win a treble. Like we were,
I had us for the quintuple.
Yeah, we could have won the support. Exactly. And that's not to say that I don't think in the first round when we're playing the NASL side, that you can't play an almost exclusively second team squad. I still think that would work.
Unless, we could be playing Ottawa, and that might be although it looks like they could struggle next year.
And Tommy Heineman's gone now.
Paul Dalglish.
So I don't see that as being an issue. I say you prioritize all of them.
Well, the fact, like during the 50s, not that I was around in the 50s, but when I was a lad in the 50s, the players would go down the pit and then they'd come out and they would play on a Saturday. They'd play midweek. They had their full-time jobs. They would play all these games. All the competitions were priorities, and now they're just too pampered. It's like, I can't play 2 full games in a week.
Yeah. Well, why not? They're supposed to be in better shape nowadays.
And they have all this modern technology with monitoring VO2 maximum.
I'm tired. I can't play.
And now they get water breaks. I'm sure in the 50s they were getting smoke breaks during the weeks.
And why not figure it out as you go along too? Like you play mostly your first team and you get thumped in your first Champions League match, and it's like, now we can take less priority on this one because we obviously are not in a position to do it anymore.
So it's all fine for us to sit around and talk about this, but talk about like, who we'd like to see in what game and how it's prioritized. The other part of this is the relational man management of this. So when you're bringing players in, or you're wanting players to stay, or whatever, part of these conversations, especially for some of these young players, is, hey, these are the opportunities you're going to have this year. So it's not like these decisions are made a week or two before the games. Like, this is a bigger plan that kind of goes into effect, so you can help prepare players mentally. Yeah, you're not getting your chance right now, player X, the beginning of the season. Don't worry, it's coming in the Voyageurs Cup. You keep working as hard as you are right now.
Yeah,
playing the Voyageurs
but do you
Cup.
think that Marco Bustos cares whether that his game was in the Voyageurs Cup semifinal or if it was in the league match the following Saturday?
No, but I think he cares. He wants to know that he's going to play.
No,
and he will.
He wants to play MLS.
Yeah.
That's like,
sure.
If you said to him, "I could play you here, but I'd rather play in the Voyageurs Cup. What would you prefer?" He'll always say MLS.
Yeah.
And I know you're pro athlete and you've got to have a certain level of confidence and whatnot, but you got to be realistic too. Like, know that I'm the lowest man on this freaking totem pole. You have to know that, right? And I've got to work my way up, and my minutes are coming in USL Pro, and I need to show that I can get up there, right? There's a 28 man roster. 22 guys should have a realistic shot at the 18 all the time.
Yeah.
Those other 6 guys have got to be working their ass off to be a part of that 22 and knock one of those guys out of that 22.
No, but
you can't say you're the 28th best player on this roster. So what we're going to do is we're going to play you against Edmonton, right? That's not, to me, that's not motivation.
But to a comment that we were saying, like you were saying, they have to work their butts off. They were working their butts off in training, but when they show up on the pitch, it's not there.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
And part of that is because they end up going on the pitch with a bunch of other guys who had only played on the training ground before.
Yeah.
So it'd be much easier. Like when we saw Kian's Froze come into a fully well-oiled machine that's a first team, and guess what? He played well.
Yeah.
But then you play him with all the plebs, and all of a sudden he's
People
like,
are
why is he not playing so well? We saw nobody's playing well. They barely communicate.
Too, right? Oh, he had his
Yeah.
chances.
Like, if they go
guys from
the regulars,
Harvey's,
if they got 3 games in a week, you get the starting 11 on the Saturday. You make 5 changes for the Wednesday, and then you put make another 5. Yeah, and I agree with you.
5's a
there.
lot better than what you're saying.
4 to 5, whatever.
So
that's why I say you have 22 guys that are really realistically part of you're going to play. You're the 22 guys that are going to play. Maybe you're number 22, so you got to
that's the goalkeeper.
Yeah, you got to keep your fire going or whatnot. But the other 6 guys are got to be pushing them. But there's no guaranteed you're going to get minutes. And if that's the motivation that okay, we're going to give you a contract and here's your motivation, you can play in the Voyageurs Cup. I don't know if I want that guy on the team.
Well, we're going to just wrap things up now.
What?
So just before we do finish this episode, just very quick round the table. What's the one thing you're most looking forward to, Whitecaps wise, for the 2016 season? Zach?
Man. I'm looking forward to retaining the Voyageurs Cup, winning the Cascadia Cup,
One thing?
winning the Supporters Shield, and winning MLS Cup.
So winning. You're like Charlie Sheen, minus the HIV. Slamo?
I'm gonna say the A residency kid stepping into a role next year. One of them. I don't know which one, but I think somebody will step it up. And
like Tommy, you mean, or like Tommy?
No, like Marco, Kian,
Sam.
right.
One of the guys that's
stepping
already
into the,
got a contract.
Yeah, stepping into the 11.
Jay, what are you most looking forward to?
It's tough. I like both of those would have been some of my answers.
You can say the same thing.
Let's it's got to be different here. This isn't 30 Seconds to Mars where I'm just looking for points. Let's say I was actually really impressed this year with the in-game experience that improved. I thought the crowds were better this year. I thought that the attendance was better, and I want to see that improve more. What I'd like to see is every game sold out, rockin' atmosphere, people getting to the game on time. I thought that was better this year than I've seen in years past.
Yep. Still not great.
No,
some of the games
still not great. That's what I'm hoping for next year because I do feel like there's a bit of momentum growing around the club in the city.
Yeah.
I'm sure Zach, you'll agree. Part of that is helped by the fact that the players come out from the middle of the fans now, as opposed to like.
It's way better.
Yeah,
You
that's
can
really
see
got
them.
them all coming in.
Yeah.
It's
You
all
can see
packed
them.
over there.
And the visiting
now.
team has to
Yeah.
walk much further now.
So that was a great decision by the
40 yards.
Yeah.
No comment.
No, Steve, what are you most looking forward to Whitecaps?
I was actually going to go with this Lambo's answer, but I'm going to go with specifically one player, and that's Marco Bustos. I want to see him actually take that huge step and actually maybe even send Pedro to the bench, or maybe put him in a deep lying midfielder role, and he really supports Rivero, the wings, and even contributes a lot of goals.
You know what gave me the most? That Seattle game where he came on for the last 20 minutes gave me. I thought that he was maybe a little farther away than he really is. Before that game in Seattle away, it was a disaster of a game. It was absolute, but he came in 25-30 minutes or something like. Was he the first sub in that game?
I can't remember. They tried to block the game.
I know it was hard. It was hard to remember any of it, but
the one down in Seattle.
Yeah.
The one down in Seattle, and he came on and he tried the back heel in the box, and he was linking up.
He had confidence.
There was a bit of speed.
He's been watching the game the whole time. He goes like, I could do better than this.
Yeah.
I was watching the game the whole time and thinking I could do better than this.
Was talking to him at a residency game one time and talking about it. I forget if you were there, but we were watching him play at Terry Fox Field, and it was ridiculous. It was U18s, right? And he was just scoring whenever he wanted to. And so one day he came down and he was like, looking for a pass at something, and I can't remember which coach, but yelled at him, Busto, just score, right? Like they just want him. You get the ball in your own box, go frickin' score, right?
So they did the goal from the halfway line. Where
Yeah,
just went,
and it was amazing, right?
It's
And
like,
so it was.
I'm just gonna run.
That was part of it. That was like the one good thing, because let's face it, he wasn't doing any developing anymore. He was like so much better than anyone there. But the one thing was that confidence level that. Go end to end. Like, just like you're playing house league and you're 5, right? Do that against guys your own age, right? At that level. Like, you're talking other 18-year-olds that are looking to make pro careers, and he's just going and scoring from, I'm going 60 yards.
Another game I remember at UBC, he had just flown in from, I think it was Kuwait, from the U20 World Cup or whatever it was. They had just flown in. He came on as a sub, and he just dominated the game right off the bat. A screamer from about 30 yards out, just like that 30 minutes, and that was earned. That was before he signed. So I would love to see him take a huge step forward, and then obviously Canada needs a number 10 too. So if he takes a big step forward with the Whitecaps, he could be eventually number 10.
I don't want to lose him for MLS games.
That's where Pedro could come in and come off the bench and start.
That's the one thing, though, I think where he's got the knock against him is that it's such, like talking about Laba, that position, such a, it's a different type of role.
Yeah.
Is that he's got more competition there, right? Whereas a defensive mid, a Canadian can come in and take that role type thing. Yeah. He's got to be really like D-Row, right? I mean, I hate to say it, but he's got to take that kind of like, attitude and just like, I'm the king, right?
No, obviously before he takes that big step, let's cap him. So he, so he doesn't go anywhere else.
Well, player-wise, I'm looking forward to seeing Teixeira. Trip-wise, I'm looking forward. I think we should be going to Yankee Stadium. I think I can do it one. I think it's ridiculous to play in a baseball thing, but I'd like to go and see. I've never been to New York, and I'd like to see the game at Yankee Stadium.
Do you want to go see Pirlo again?
I couldn't care about who's playing us, but I just think it's going to be such a unique experience to. With those, see a game at a baseball stadium,
20-yard corner kick.
That's like saying that you're excited to have the experience of sitting in a limited viewing seat with a hole in front of you. Yeah, is that really something?
Well, I just realised I have seen a game at a baseball stadium in Tacoma in the PDL, and that was a horrendous experience because I couldn't work out what the pitch was and what the sand was. At least this is all grass. I was looking at those pictures the other day, and I was like, man, Callum Irvin was the keeper. And he was like, didn't know what was happening in this. He didn't know where his box was or anything. But I'm most looking forward to the CCL campaign because Robbo has said that this year was their experience. So I fully expect the team to go out qualify for the quarterfinals, and then that's just going to be exciting as hell. If we get a Mexican team,
That's another trophy we need to win.
I would settle for that over the MLS Cup.
I would be, if we were the first MLS team to win that, I'd be pretty freaking stoked.
Because I want us to be the first Cascadian team,
absolutely.
or Canadian or Cascadian, to win the MLS Cup.
Yeah,
so
that's too late.
Rude now.
We're still going to be the first Canadian, though.
Yeah.
Screws over TFC
Yeah,
Montreal.
true. So that's what I'd like. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for taking part. Thanks for listening. Just before we go, just quickly round the table and we'll ask everyone and tell everyone where they can find you online. Zach.
It's at Zachary AM on Twitter. I'm part of a movement called the Curva Collective with my good friend Slamo.
And Slamo.
I'm at SSLAMO, Slamo.
It's been a long
Twitter. Yeah, long night.
And Jay.
I'm at JAY_Duke and writing for www.bigwilliesjohnson.com.
I'm a big fan of that site.
Bacon
Sponsored by
beer
Kleenex, I believe.
And socks.
So Steve, where can they find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Whitecapsbeat. And I also, if you don't mind, want to plug my kids' YouTube channel. They play video games on there. Anybody who has kids that want to watch that stuff, Captain Star Mines is their channel. I recommend having the volume way down when you do play it, but check it out. It's fun.
And I'm Michael McCall. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. You can also find us online at aftn.ca. You can also find me online looking at pictures of Rose McIver from iZombie. Lovely goth look there. I'm also the Whitecaps beat reporter for MLSsoccer.com. And yeah, you should check all those things out.
All around good guy.
Yeah, especially the photos of Rose McIver. She's big down under. So we hope you've enjoyed this nonsense. If you have, come back for another issue soon. Or an episode even. We're not a magazine. You can't read this. So until then, thanks for listening. Take care. And
On the Caps!
Kuchevsky.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.